What's up, Everyday Blades? Man, since the first day I saw this knife, I wanted one. This is definitely one of my grails, but the reason I wanted it is because of a production version of it that's out. Today we're talking about the Sharknivco Edison Barajas Mini Goblin, which I didn't even know this existed when I first started chasing a couple of years ago a Koenig Mini Goblin, which is one of my favorite knives of all time. And it's a licensed deal, a collaboration with Sharknivco. They knocked it out the park. The action on that thing's ridiculous. Everything about it is just perfect. I love it. I've had a couple of 3 different versions of it. I've done multiple videos on it. Never have been in a position to get an original until this week. So I did some trading, finagling. I actually traded my other XL Roosevelt for this, along with some cash. It comes with this nice Pelican case. And makers, if you're gonna make a nice knife, at least if you're not gonna do a nice case like this, at least do a nice monogram pouch, something to store the knife in. Don't send your knives out wrapped in bubble wrap. It's just you need to step it up. You're charging good money for your knives. Throw a nice pouch in or a nice case to put it in. Here she is. And that is one beautiful, beautiful knife. The biggest difference right off the bat from this and the Mini Goblin, and I highly regret that I don't have a Mini Goblin, Koenig Mini Goblin here to put beside it. But the Koenig Mini Goblin is quite a bit thicker than this, all the way down. It's almost to the point where you'd say it's maybe a little bit too thick. It makes the knife kind of blocky. That would be the only nitpick I would have against the Koenig version, but that's a really strong nitpick. It's not that important because the knife is so great. Now this knife, if you have your finger anywhere on the lock bar, I mean even looking at the lock bar, it ain't gonna open. You gotta train yourself to keep your finger off the lock bar and it opens just fine. This one is RWL 34, 6LV titanium. Beautiful milled pocket clip, beautiful back spacer. They just did a killer job. The pivot is even good looking, but I don't mind proprietary hardware. Excuse me. I don't mind proprietary hardware on a knife because it can be very attractive, as this is. This is very attractive hardware. But throw the tool in with the knife. You're gonna have a way to service your knife. It's not when I clean my knives really good, or I go out on a hunting trip and they got fish guts all in them. I want to take them apart and clean them properly. I'm not gonna want to carry that knife until I do. You gotta have the tool to take these things apart. You ain't gonna find that little microscopic 3-prong thing anywhere that I know of. If one of you know, let me know. Or if you have a little machine shop, I guess you could make one, but I don't. This one, I could probably use a spanner pliers or a spanner wrench to get that off, but no way to get that off. Plus, I don't want to take a chance on scratching the knife. This is a very expensive knife. I don't know how much they are new, but I know on Arizona Custom Knives, they sell used for $1,600, $1,700, $1,800, which that site is a little bit high, but I see them regularly $1,400, $1,500. I'm in this one for right around 14. But anyway, back to the proprietary hardware. I want to be able to take my knife apart for 2 reasons. One, I want to be able to clean it when I get nasty stuff in the bearings, especially with it being bearings. Number 2 is I'm very skilled at taking my knives apart and put them back together. I don't have an issue. I'm not going to have an issue where, oh no, I can't get the knife back together. I'm sure there are some people that would happen to, but that's kind of their problem if they took apart a knife they didn't really know how to fix. You know, That's something that the maker shouldn't worry about. Send the tool, or at least have the tool available for purchase. From my experience, the tool is harder to get than the knife. I want to be able to take this up because for me, the lock bar is just a little bit too tight. If you could loosen up that lock bar pressure, it wouldn't matter where your finger was on that lock bar. And this knife would be so much more pleasant to use if I could just relieve that lock bar pressure a little bit. I don't know if this will end up being a keeper. One, because I like a little more shiny finishes on my knife. Like my XL Roosevelt, that silver surfer finish. I like my titanium knives to have that kind of finish. This one is just kind of, especially the blade, it's kind of chalkboardy feeling. It's blasted. It's a little bit rough. And it's a nitpicky thing. It's a personal thing. But when you're $1,400 into a knife, it goes back to what I was saying in my last video. When you go to buy your Grail knife or a really expensive knife for you, make sure you get the version that you want. There's nothing worse than spending that kind of money and only being 90% pleased with it. This one, I'm going to figure out a way to get the tool or have the tool made or something. And I may end up keeping it. I may send it out and get it vapor honed. If I do that, I'll just keep it forever. Just to make it a little more pleasant to hold. A little better feeling in the hand. But yeah, I don't know where you would get. Look how tiny those things are. I mean, they're microscopic. I would have a hard time making a tool for that. But anyway, let's look at some comparisons. Here is the Rat 2. It's a little bit longer than the Rat 2. Quite a bit shorter than the Rat 1. And it's my son's bug out. It's just a little bit shorter than the bug out. But it's wider, so it feels as big or bigger than the bug out. And our measurements are 3 1/8 on the blade. 3 7/8 on the scales. Let's see what it weighs. 2.8 ounces. Wow. Almost nothing, but it has extensive milling in there. I think you guys can see that in there. Anywho, let's check the sharpness of it. Now this knife is not new, but I got it and all I did was strop it a couple of times. Let's see how easily it came back. If it needed it at all. 130. That's amazing. That's one thing I've found about RWL34. It's a lot easier to sharpen than say like 20CV or M390 for me. It seems like it's just an easier steel to sharpen. It may not have quite the edge retention, but it's close. But man, you got to consider that. You got to consider ease of sharpening. Like I said, as long as you keep your fingers off that lock bar, this thing will fly out there. But with a little bit of adjustment on that lock bar, in my experience, just take some of that. It's got a lot of tension on it. Just take a little bit of that tension off, and that thing would fly out there whether you had your fingers on it or not. So, anyway, the Sharknivco Mini Goblin. Guys, thanks for watching. God bless you and your families. Say a prayer for our country. Good night.